The Leave Your Legacy podcast is supported by Wise Financial. Wise Financial is a Northwestern Mutual private client group member. For over 20 years, Wise Financial has dedicated its efforts to designing comprehensive wealth management strategies for business owners and many accomplished athletes. Through their efforts, Wise Financial has been recognized as an industry-leading firm. The Northwestern Mutual Life Insurance Company, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Hello, and welcome to the Leave Your Legacy podcast. I'm your host, Kenyon Murray, and today we have a good friend, someone that it was kind of interesting how we came to know each other, but we've developed an unbelievable friendship over the last couple years. He's become a good friend of our family, and so I want to welcome to the show Mark Wise. Mark, welcome to the show.
Good afternoon, Kenyon. Hey, thanks for having me on your podcast. I love what you're doing. Appreciate our friendship. And again, just thank you for having me here today.
Yeah, well, you have a very interesting life. So I want to give our audience kind of a little bit of your background growing up in Indiana and kind of your journey to where you are today. So just give our audience a little bit of a look into where Mark Wise grew up.
Yeah, so I grew up about 65 miles southeast of Indianapolis, a small community called Connorsville, Indiana. I grew up on a big farm there. There wasn't a lot to do in that small community. I think there's 14,000 people, so really small. But I worked on that farm and worked a lot on that farm. Any free time that I did have, you typically find me in the backyard playing basketball or at a friend's house as I got older and could drive, or I'd be at the park. Absolutely love the game, and the career that I'm in today has enabled me to stay really connected with the game indirectly. Wasn't quite good enough to make it to the NBA, so I had to find another path to stay connected with the game. So that's a little bit about my background and how I got going.
Well, like many Iowans too, a lot of my friends, they grew up on a farm, and there's nothing that can be said about just the work ethic that you develop growing up on a farm. So how did your work ethic that you built growing up, how did that carry you into college and then on to what you're doing today as a financial advisor?
Yeah, on the farm, working isn't optional, right? You have to work. It is a requirement. And I'm so glad that I learned that skill early on. When I went on to college to Ball State, I put myself through school. Starting out, I would work 2 to 3 jobs, 25 to 35 hours a week during the school year.
Wow.
And then the summers, I worked 2 full-time jobs, working 80 to 100 hours every single week. And it was tough. I mean, I didn't know if it was morning, noon, or night. Like I got up, it was dark. I got home, it was dark. But I will tell you, the thing that I learned is that work ethic can help you overcome an awful lot of things. You don't have to be the smartest individual in the room. You don't have to have the most talent in the room. You can have an awful lot of deficiencies and go really far. And so I've just always had that, and it helped me in college tremendously. It's helped me in my current profession tremendously. And every opportunity I have a chance to talk to my kids, my friends, if people ask me, hey, how have you been able to do certain things or achieve certain things? Typically I start with talking about work ethic and the things that it's done for me in my life. And so that is an attribute that I'm glad I learned early. There were times where it wasn't fun, but it certainly has helped me along the way.
Yeah, there's that old adage, what it says, hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard. I think that's something not only in the sports world, but that can be taken in any profession. The one thing that I will say about you from day one is that generosity and Mark Wise go hand in hand. I mean, from, opening up your home to McKenna and I when we were in town for an AAU tournament to always hosting us when we come around. So, your generosity, like, I guess the question, like, why are you so generous to so many people? Because it would be easy, because of the success you've had, to kind of just brush people off. But that's not you, that's not Abby, that's not the kids. Like, everyone in your household is so generous of their time and things like that. So how was that shaped in you?
Yeah. Back when I went to college at Ball State, in my dorm, 80% of my peers had some form of disability. My roommate had fallen 40 feet from a tree and it crushed his spinal column. Wow. And he was in a wheelchair. My next door neighbor, Greg, had severe cerebral palsy. And one day I was going into Greg's room and I kind of gotten to know him the first couple weeks of school and really enjoyed kind of hanging out with him. He loved baseball. And I was like, hey, why don't we go grab dinner tonight? And he's like, that sounds great. He's like, I just got to finish typing up this paper by 6 p.m. We got to have it turned in. I'm like, fantastic. I got to go get a workout in, go to class. We get back, we'll go. And so I come back like 4 hours later, and I looked at the paper he was typing up, and he did not make a ton of progress. And I'm just thinking to myself, what's he been doing? This has got to be turned in. And I later kind of find out that due to the lack of motor control, due to his disability with CP, he'd go to hit the keyboard and type something, and it would just be a bunch of letters. And then he'd have to hit the backspace. And Kenyon, man, my heart just sunk, right. And I just, from that moment on, I helped him type up the paper. And I ended up being his attendant for 4 years at Ball State. But it made me really think about who I am and where I'm going and what my priorities are. I felt like at the time pretty rough, right? I'm working like all the time. And a lot of my buddies were doing things that I want to do, but I couldn't do because I had to work. But then I thought to myself after seeing that, I'm like, I get to go play basketball. I get to go to my class without someone having to help me. I can go to the shower by myself. Like there were just so many things that I think in that moment, I was just thinking about me because I was just day to day trying to survive, that I took for granted a lot of the blessings that I also had. And so I think that moment just changed my life. It changed my perspective. And, I was like, I'm never going to make, excuse for anything. I'm going to try and be kind to everybody. I want to be respectful for everybody. I want to live a life of service. And that's kind of, I think, just become the fabric of who I am.
Well, it goes right into the next question I had about your faith. I mean, that's one of the things that we talk about a lot. You are a man of faith. And the question I have for you is like, how does your faith impact your daily actions? And like I said, we talk about it a lot. We send each other little things here and there, but yeah, I mean, I see it every day in how you live, that your faith is very apparent. So how does that affect your daily actions?
Yeah, I mean, my faith is like the foundation of everything. When I think about, some days are tough, like there are for all of us, right? Some days are easier than others. In a very uncertain world, having that certainty with my faith is that rock. It's that foundation. And sometimes that faith is telling me, hey, you need to become a better listener. You need to be more focused. You need to be a better dad, a better father, a better leader, a better employer, better friend. And so my faith is so important to me because without it, I don't know where I would be. Like I would be in a different place. I know that. Right. And I certainly wouldn't be the man that I'm aspiring to become. And I'm always under construction. I'm always just trying to find ways to get better. Fortunately, my wife is super strong in her faith, and having that in your household also helps, a ton as somebody that is absolutely committed to their faith. And so no doubt about it, that is the most important thing in my life that helps everything else go.
No, I feel you on that. And we do talk about being under construction, day in and day out. And one of the things I've been doing, so I have, I created, my 3 E's of personal growth, and through that, I know they're always in constant motion. I'm always establishing new habits. I'm always executing those habits, and then really doing a self-evaluation, the 30. And so those things are always in motion. But what are some of your intentional habits? I think that's a word that I really like now is intentionality, being intentional. What are some of the things that you try to exhibit, whether it's daily, weekly, monthly habits that you feel really set the tone for who you are and how you move in the world?
Yeah. So back in 2002, 2003, I signed up for Master University with Tony Robbins. And I remember going to some of these different events, and he always came up with all these acronyms. And I loved it because it helped me remember stuff. And one of the ones that he started with was CAN I, which stood for constant and never ending improvement. Another one was, you got to have a big map, massive action plan. And so early on in my career, those just stuck with me. And every day I'm always thinking about those things. And I have a bunch of other acronyms that I've learned from others kind of along the way. But I feel like those acronyms, keep me in check, making sure that I'm doing the things that I should be doing on a day-to-day, week-to-week, year-to-year basis. And again, I'm not perfect by any means. Like I'm probably not doing it every day, but I'm striving towards perfection, and using those acronyms has helped me a ton just to make sure I'm green and growing. I'm not ripe and rotting. I'm being the best version of myself as much as I possibly can.
Oh, I love that. I love that. And I think one of the things that's great about our crew too, the Circle of Trust, is we fill each other's buckets, and that's a constant. So who are some of the people that have poured into you? We all have people that have poured into us at different times for different things, but who are some of the people that come to mind when you think about, they are always filling my bucket whenever I see them, even if I haven't talked to them in a long time. I think we all have people like that. So who are some of yours?
Yeah. So, number one, my wife, because at the end of the day, as I mentioned earlier, I'm super blessed to have somebody that has just always supported me, no matter what, not complaining if I'm having to work some extra hours or a weekend or take a flight here or there, just always super supportive. And this is a tough career that I'm in, and I'm pulled a lot of directions. And so having that, constantly in my life is huge for me. A couple of the people that are kind of coming to mind as I'm sitting here thinking about it really goes back to college. Blake Chastain was an individual. You heard me say earlier, I was working those 2-3 jobs. By the time I got into my junior year, I ended up starting to sell Cutco knives. And I'll just be honest, Kenyon, it was a disaster.
I remember some of the stories.
Yeah, it was not good. I wasn't following the program. When I found I had to spend $138 on these knives and I was going to be selling them, I had no idea what I was getting myself into. But make a long story short, Blake, took me aside and, he said he basically had faith in me. And I don't know why he had faith in me at the time, but he did. And he gave me a book. It was Unlimited Power by Tony Robbins. I read that. He helped coach me, and I would not be where I'm at today. I finished #1 in the nation selling those knives. Paid off all my debt the last day of school, and it was literally from Blake having faith in me when I didn't even have faith in myself, giving me that book, and motivating and inspiring me when I didn't really show up. But he continued to pour into me. And he's a client to this day and just become a great person that I will never be able to repay him for how much he helped me get to where I'm at. So that would be one. The second person is a business partner of mine in real estate today, Jeff Smiley. Back again, as I wrapped up selling Cutco knives, I sold his wife like a lot of knives. Okay. and that was a problem because that created some challenges with Kathy and Jeff. And she ended up canceling the order a couple weeks later. And she called me up, and I think she could feel me just be deflated like a balloon. And so anyway, I gave me 50% commission on those knives. That was a pretty big financial hit for me. Yeah. But she called me back about a week later and she said, you know what, let's go ahead and place that order. Yeah. And I don't know what ended up happening at home, but I think she just felt so bad. And make a long story longer, I ended up calling on her once I finished up with school, and now I'm in the business that I'm in now. And I said, hey, we'd love to sit down with you guys. And she said, hey, I don't handle the finance stuff. You're gonna have to talk with Jeff. And so I called on Jeff for many months, and he would just never take my call. And so I called her back, and I was like, hey, thanks a ton, for making the introduction. I've called him a bunch of times. He won't return my call. And so, but just thanks. And she's like, no. He's going to take your call. Just call him tomorrow at 9:00. I call him at 9:00. Sure enough, he picks up. He begrudgingly, takes a meeting with me. I was smart enough to bring out a partner in the firm, and he ended up becoming a client. We built this great friendship, but shortly into our relationship, he did something amazing for me. He reached out to 3 of his closest friends that were super successful. And he left a couple of them voicemails. He got a hold of one of them, and I'm right there and he's talking about me, and the things that he said about me, I felt like he was really stretching the truth like a lot. But I got 3 meetings with all of them. They all 3 became clients, and it took my business to an entirely different area code. And he didn't have to do that. And we've just developed this great friendship ever since then. And we've, like I said, become business partners, and very fortunate to have all 3 of those individuals in my life, because it makes me want to aspire to do more, to be more as a human being.
Well, number one, I'm going back to her because she's the next question on the list. I mean, your wife is unbelievable. I love the fact that every time we come, you go, oh, your room's ready. Then you got the big old muffins ready for us too. She's awesome. So, speaking of Abby, like, and I don't even know if you can begin to even come to an answer for this, but just give us a couple things of what she does. Cause you've got 3 super active kids. And, even when I'm in town or whatever, like I barely see her because she's ripping and running, but what are just a few of the things that she does to keep the Wise family household running on all cylinders?
Yeah, I think it's more like, what doesn't she do?
Right.
Because, like you said, 3 kids, right? She's packing those, lunches late at night or early in the morning. She's making sure everybody's up in the morning. She's making sure our social calendar. So we're doing things with church. We're making sure we're spending time with friends and family. She's supporting me and making sure I'm where I need to be all the time. She is that constant force for good, and I'm so beyond blessed to have her, because I'm always reminded to just do the right things. And this career has enabled me to build my career around my life instead of my life around my career. Yes. And, that is a function of her, making sure that I understand, that there are priorities that you need to put first. And so since we've been married, I've literally put all the kids' activities, all the things that we're going to do as a family, that goes on the calendar first. And then I'm putting everything else around that. And 85-90% of the time, I'm able to hold that calendar. Every once in a while, I have to pivot. But, when you have somebody that is so supportive 100% of the time, or I should say 99% of the time, like it just makes things so much easier, particularly when you are putting in a lot of hours and you are doing a lot of things that take your time. So just very blessed that she helps run the show. She's really taking care of 4 of us, not just the 3 kids. She's taking care of me as well.
Say the same thing. I always say, people are like, oh, your kids are so nice. I'm like, yes, Michelle has done a good job with all of us. So I definitely know the feeling on that. But hey, this is the Leave Your Legacy podcast. And one of the questions I ask everyone is, what does leaving a legacy mean to you? And I think it's important that I ask that question because it's important because you're touching so many people around you, whether it's professionally, personally, spiritually. But what does leaving a legacy mean to Mark Wise?
Yeah, that's a great question. And you heard me say earlier, I'm under construction, right? And I think I would apply that here as well. Like there are things in my life that are very important to me, particularly from a philanthropic and giving back perspective. I'd love to cure childhood cancer. I'd love to provide more to the underserved. I'd love to provide better support for children with special needs. And the list goes on and on and on. And so what I've tried to build is a vessel to create capital to be able to build something that will then fund all the different things that are not only important to my wife and I, but also our children, hopefully future grandchildren, clients, the community, our employees. Like I want to find a way to be able to take care of a lot of things that are important to a lot of people. And that takes a lot of resources to do that. And so I'm trying to find and build something that will be able to do things way beyond my lifetime. And I don't have it fully crystallized on exactly what I want it to look like. Yeah. It's hard because there are so many things that are important to my wife and I and our family and extended family. that I'm trying to refine that and figure out, how can we really go deep on some things to make a meaningful, lasting impact, and let that continue to go on in perpetuity for the greater good. So I'm still under construction, still working to try and figure that out, but I think I'm getting close. And so that maybe to be continued on possibly a future podcast.
Yeah, for sure. No, I think there's so many things that you talk about. Obviously, we're in alignment with a lot of different things, and I think our belief systems are really aligned with that. Obviously, you're helping us right now as we try to build our nonprofit and make our mark there, and which we really appreciate. But man, I think whatever you set your mind to, obviously you're going to accomplish. So whatever you have to do to like narrow focus, whatever it is, get deeper, I know you'll do. And obviously having Abby there to help guide that is definitely a positive as well.
Absolutely. There's no doubt about that.
All right. So rapid fire questions. I do ask all my guests. I got 3 questions for you today. The first one is, and I know you've done a lot of traveling. So in all your travels, what is your favorite place to travel to and why?
Can I give you 2?
Yeah, you can give me 2.
Okay. So I think the first would be Fiji.
Okay.
And not because the beaches are necessarily any better, the water's any bluer per se. It is nice, but it's the people. I will never forget the first time, that I went there. It didn't matter if you walked by, drove by 100 times in a day, any of the Fijian people, they would always stop and they'd have this big smile, and then they do this wave and they would say, bola, 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 bola. Yeah. And it was just this, you could sense like this spirituality, this humility, and you just wanted to hang around them because they were just so happy to just see you and want to ask you questions. And it was one of the neatest things that I've ever experienced. And you throw that in with the beauty of the islands and everything. So that's why I love Fiji. And then Hawaii would be my second, particularly Maui, and be able to take the family there. It's just so tropical, and you just feel like you can just really relax in nature. And spending time with families is so important to me. My kids now 17, 15, and 13. And so they're getting older. And so being able to spend that quality time with them is extremely important. I also like to try and time a little bit to where there's maybe the Maui Classic.
Right.
After the vacation, maybe we can go watch a few games on the way. So those are 2 of my favorite. But honestly, we love, particularly in the winter months, to get somewhere warm. So we have a lot of places we love, but those 2 are definitely my favorites.
Okay. Awesome. Have to get to Fiji. I love Hawaii too. Favorite college or professional arena?
All right. Well, I might get booed off of this podcast here, but my favorite would have to definitely be Indiana University and Assembly Hall. The tradition that's there, the ruckus crowd, the memories I've been able to build with my family by going down there and grabbing lunch or dinner, and then going to the game, the pregame, and particularly when it's a big time game and it's a whiteout. There just aren't too many places out there where you can be in that type of environment. So that's definitely my favorite place.
All right. We won't boo you off of here. It's a pretty neat place. All right. And last one. All right. So you're on a desert island and you can only listen to one recording artist. Who would it be?
I'm going to fail this podcast because honestly, I would say throw me anything you got. Like, I love music and I love different genres. I love different artists. If I listen to the same artist over and over again, I'd probably get bored. And so, growing up, I listened to a lot of Lionel Richie because seemed like that was on our house all the time. Yeah. But I just love music in general. And I don't have necessarily a favorite. If I'm going to listen to music, I'm going to go to Spotify and I'm going to pick something random to listen to different hits. So unfortunately, I don't have necessarily a favorite to pick for you today.
Gotcha. It's all good, man. It's all good. Honesty. That's what I want. Honesty. All right. So every day or every podcast, I do a quote, and I really relate it to the guests that I have on. And I found this quote by American writer O. Henry. and it's a short one, and it says, "No friendship is an accident." And that quote is what I feel about our friendship. It's unique, and we'll touch on it on another podcast on how we really became friends, but it is no accident that you and I became friends, and it was God's way of putting us together, and he put us together at a time where we didn't know what the future was going to be, and the future has really been at this point beautifully laid out for us as far as our friendship, but I really feel like we were brought together for a reason, and I just want to let you know how much I appreciate that friendship. And there's so many things that we're going to do in the future, but I appreciate you so much.
Well, and that's right back at you, Kenyon. I mean, it has been a blessing for me and my family to get to know you, your family. You guys are doing amazing things. As I said from the outset, what you're doing with Leave a Legacy podcast is amazing. You're going to change and impact so many lives in a positive way. I love being part of the Circle of Trust with you and David and Jordan. And so just thank you for being a part of my life. And you are one of those individuals, along with the others in that Circle of Trust, that have poured into me, that have made me a better person. And so I'm super grateful for that. And I'm just excited about this next chapter with your family and what you guys have going on, because it's going to be amazing.
I appreciate that. You still haven't met Chris. We still got to get you with Chris. So
I know. I did meet him out there at Madison Square Garden.
That's true. Yeah, for sure.
So met him a couple of times, but looking forward to getting a chance to really get to know him. Yeah, for sure. Well, hey,
another great episode of Leave Your Legacy podcast. Please go to the Talk About Network YouTube page. Subscribe, give us a like, hit the notification button so you know when a new episode drops. We're also available on the iHeartRadio platform, Spreaker, Spotify, Apple iTunes, or wherever you get your podcasts. So until next time, I'm your host, Kenyon Murray. This podcast is sponsored by Storyline Multimedia. Storyline is an Iowa City-based media company that specializes in creating high-quality video, photo, and audio productions for local businesses. Not only that, but they also produce a number of podcasts, including this one. So if you're interested in sharing the story of your business with the world, contact them today by visiting StorylineMultimedia.com. And remember, your story matters.